Welcome. I think we'll give it another minute or so for a few more people to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Thank you all for joining. My name is Amelia Henry. I'm an architect and senior partnership lead here at Finch. I'm here today with Ruben, who maybe wants to introduce himself.
Thanks, Amelia. Yes, my name is Ruben. I'm also an architect. I work with customer success here at Finch, so responsible for any trainings, support, onboarding, and things like that.
Great. And the idea with today is that we're going to go through the workflow of Finch Enterprise as well as Finch Basic, kind of starting in Rhino, uploading a mass, generating through that, and then finally bringing it out into Revit. So we'll start off with a few slides here at the beginning, then we'll go through the workflow. We will have Q&A at the end, so do write any questions that you have in the chat, and we'll go through them. This session will also be recorded, and the recording will be sent out to everyone who registered within the next coming days. All right, but with that, I will go ahead and just share my screen and we'll jump right into it. All right, so just a bit of background about Finch. Finch is where AI and architects design together. It's a generative co-pilot. As mentioned, I'm an architect myself. Ruben's also an architect and the founders are as well. And this is really who we envision using Finch. It is an architectural design tool ultimately. Finch was started back in 2020 by Jesper and Pamela Wahlgren, who later collaborated with Martin Kretz, our CTO. And this GIF, you may have seen it, kind of went viral and was the birth of Finch, essentially. The idea of the adaptive plan and this concept that architecture can be something that is dynamic and automated and responding to changing conditions. Currently, this is a small portion of our team. We have Pamela Nunez Wahlgren, our co-founder and CEO, as well as Jesper Wahlgren, co-founder and CPO. Myself and Ruben are here today. If you guys do want to get access to Finch, feel free to reach out to me directly. Currently, we have over 100,000 people on our waitlist, which is quite exciting, but also we can't open up to everyone all at once. So what we're doing in the meantime is what we call the enterprise partnership. This is where we partner with select firms. It's a minimum 1-year basis. And the really crucial aspect of this is that we build a custom data set for each of these firms. So this means that when these firms are generating, it's not just random AI generated plans. These plans are trained on their past projects, meaning that they're in their style, following their local regulations. They're ultimately going to look very familiar. The way that we actually build these data sets is currently quite manual. We have an in-house architecture team that is working with these. And this is also part of the reason that we don't open Finch up completely yet, because simply we need to schedule in the data set builds. The way we kind of take in enterprise firms, every month we open up a few slots. Once they're full, we close them until the next month just to be able to accommodate those data set builds. Here we have a case study with one of our current enterprise firms, Shepherd Robson. They're a UK firm, around 300 architects, and they use Finch a lot for early stage feasibility. In this particular project, they actually had a feasibility study where they couldn't quite hit the numbers on, but then with Finch, they were not only able to hit those numbers, but actually could produce 30 iterations, all hitting those numbers. So for them, what's really crucial is being able to produce multiple iterations in the same amount of time previously used to create just one. And this is something that we can discuss with you quite a bit because the bottom line is with AI, with Finch, you're going to save time, but how you choose to reallocate that time is entirely up to your firm's business model. In the case of some firms, creating better designs, being able to kind of reallocate that back into the work itself is one thing we see. We also do see some firms choosing to simply cut their total hours. This is one of our firms located here in Europe. They do a lot of competition. So for them, it really makes sense to be able to spend less amount of time for competition so they can submit more bids and kind of do that for their business. So there's kind of a lot of strategies to go about it. Of course, we are in a bit of a transitionary period with the implementation of these tools. So we're always open to kind of talk about that and what Finch can make sense for in regarding your workflows. And of course, with this type of project, being able to design 220 apartments in just 3 hours, and those plans are in local language, following local code, it goes really fast once you have this data set kind of as a foundation. Our pricing for Finch Basic and Finch Enterprise, we have two different tiers. Finch Basic is open to everyone. You can sign up for it today. It doesn't require a data set build. It does include a free trial, and that's a single user license. That's priced at 49 euros per month. Finch Enterprise starts at 1,000 euros per month on a minimum 1 year contract. This includes sort of that data set build. If you are interested in Finch Enterprise for your firm, feel free to reach out and we can kind of discuss next steps and how we can get you access to that. A bit about Finch itself. So the three sort of main values of Finch. First one is generating plans in your style. So it's your wall widths, it's your door widths, it's your furniture. It's always going to look very familiar. But Finch is a full editor as well. So the architect is always sort of in control of this whole design process. Absolutely everything that is generated can always be customized. You can move walls, you can change furniture. It is a full design tool. And by way of building up this custom data set, what we essentially are doing is creating a library or an archive of all of your past residential projects stored and hosted in Finch that is accessible for everyone in your firm. So this can be a good way just to document simply the design style and ethos of your firm, but it also can be a way to kind of transfer knowledge to younger architects who have less experience in the residential sector. Each of these plans has a lot of metadata attached to it, so you can go in and see, where was this built, who ordered this plan, what are the regulations that it's following, and Finch actually is going to use this information to be able to regenerate this plan into entirely new contexts. Here we have Nordic. This is one of our Scandinavian partners. They have a really nice data set, over 300 plans, and they actually work in multiple countries. They have an office in Iceland as well. So they kind of have sub data sets in their data set. They have an Icelandic one and a Norwegian one. And of course, those are following those local regulations. They're in different languages. So that means that when a Norwegian architect is sitting down, they just filter for Norway, and same goes for Iceland. So in this way, we can kind of divide up the data set to be relevant to your firm, whether this means you want to have different data sets for different clients, different cities, states, accessibility types, affordable housing versus not. We'll kind of strategize together with you about what makes sense for your firm. We bring everything out into Revit as a full BIM model. I will go through this today and show kind of that Revit export, but you're getting it in the native file format. So you're bringing in model groups, area plans, custom families, all of that data is sorted and ready to go. You don't need to spend a lot of time with model management in the later stages. We currently support multifamily residential. Within the residential bubble, we do kind of include essentially anything with a bed. So we say that this is hotels, this is elder care, student housing, as well as master planning. We are actually currently working on offices, and the first iteration of that office module is planned to come out early 2026. So I think we'll probably post some stuff on LinkedIn pretty soon about that, so stay tuned for that. We currently support Rhino, Revit, Grasshopper, and Forma. If you do follow us on LinkedIn, you also maybe have seen that we are currently working on ArchiCAD as well. That's also aimed to come out in 2026. All right, last slide here before we jump into our live demo. So this is the workflow of Finch. You're always going to start off in an external software, whether that is Rhino, Revit, Grasshopper, or Forma, and create the mask there. But then when you go into Finch, you're working on the inside of the building. So that's generating the floor plates, the cores, the unit mixes, as well as the apartments. And then you always can bring it out into Rhino, Revit, Grasshopper afterwards. One thing to note here is that I show a linear diagram here, but you can jump into Finch at any stage of the project. If you already do have cores drawn, if you are doing maybe like a refit where you have certain structural elements that you need to retain and generate around, you can always upload those straight from Rhino, Revit, Grasshopper and generate around those existing structures. So you can kind of fit Finch in anywhere in the workflow, wherever it makes sense. You don't have to have this perfect early stage feasibility project to be able to use it. Generate unit plan, graph rules, these types of things. These are only available in the enterprise tier. The massing studio and floor plate studio are what are available in basic. And I will kind of highlight when we transition into the enterprise features today in the demo as well. All right, with that, we'll jump over into Finch and get started with the live demo. I think we're having some issues with Cloudflare globally today, so I think we'll be doing the Rhino workflow rather than Forma today, but you can also start off in Forma and we'll head down into Revit as well. So if we go ahead and jump into Forma, or into Finch, sorry. Here we are inside of Finch. This is a custom data set, so this is the plan library. And Finch is a web app, so we have connections to Rhino, Revit, Grasshopper, all of those. but that's really for sending and receiving geometry. When it comes to generation, all of that is happening up on our servers. So here we are inside of Acme Architects plan library. They have 195 plans. This is one of our demo firms. I'm an architect at this firm. I can come in here, start clicking around, see, how do these plans compare to each other? We can take a look at our parallel axis diagram and look at, area, edges, spaces, a lot of metrics there. We also could graph our area by area spread. Here we can see that we have a really nice consistent size range across the data set, so we can generate in a lot of different sizes of apartments. We also could look at, how are our 4-edge rectangular plans versus our 6-edged L shapes. We're probably not going to get too many results for L shapes sub 40 square meters just because we don't have that in the data set. So this can also be a really good way to kind of catalog what you guys have designed in the past and understand what you'll be able to generate in the future. Over on the left, we have a lot of filters. So this is essentially a catalog that you can search through, filter through. So we can say we want to see specific hotel rooms. We want to see hotel rooms that have specific tags associated with them. We could say, show me all of the affordable housing plans that are 3-bedroom, these types of things. So it goes really quick to be able to kind of filter through different plans. So these are all the plans that have storage in them. So this is a nice way to kind of interact with that. If we jump into the data set itself. So here we are inside of an actual plan. And this plan, we can see that the graph is overlaid here. And the way that the Finch graph works is essentially we place a node in each space, and then we map the relationships between these nodes, which allows you to set up rules about how they can ultimately relate to each other. And this is the way that Finch is actually reading architecture on the back end, but we've also brought it forward for the architects to interact with and kind of see that logic in real time. So right now we don't have any issues. Everything looks good to go. Everything is in blue here, but we do have this double bed with this clear space around it. And if I was to just do something like that, immediately Finch is going to catch that, we are conflicting with this. This plan is not accessible. So we're throwing an instant error that we have an object collision here. So in the data set itself, it's acting kind of like a spell check, just making sure we don't have any issues. But then when we actually go into the project here in a second, I can set up even more specific graph rules that are more like site specific because these can change very often. So this is always what the architect is setting up in the project itself. If I take a look here at the bounds, then I can preview how Finch might adapt this plan. So what would happen if I make it a little bit wider here? When I do this, you can see that things don't move proportionally. This is a bit excessive, but just to show that relationship. And this is because when we set up the data set, we're going to add constraints directly in to the plans themselves. So if we turn on our constraints, we can see that this bathroom is actually locked, same as this corridor. So these are fixed dimensions. We never want them to change. They should be, what they actually are in the plan. And then when it comes to the bedrooms here, it's okay if those grow, but we should never have them get any smaller. So this is kind of, guiding Finch and how it can actually manipulate the plan before we even get into the context of a localized project. We also add a tagging system to each plan. This is something that we will create together with you. Tags commonly look like, client names, city names. Is it type A, type B? Is it affordable housing? Is it wheelchair accessible? But these can be as generic or as specific as you guys are looking for. The more metadata attached to each plan, the more control you have to filter through the results in the actual project. All right. So now we're jumping over into Finch. So here we are inside of Finch. This is what a project looks like straight from Rhino Revit Forma. I've just uploaded this mass. And the first thing that I always do right after uploading, I take a look at my key figures. I think I want a little bit more of a breakdown of the programmatic data here. So let's just go ahead and select these ranges. Say that this is Resi here. Let's say that this is, going to be restaurant on the bottom. I can also be even a little bit more specific with my spaces, and I can say that actually half of this bottom floor is going to be office. So I'll add that in there, and we see that update in real time. I actually have a Rhino connection open here with a live sync going in. So as I make those changes, everything is updating in real time. And if I turn on my structure, I can actually see that wall is appearing right as we draw it. If we jump back down here, let's say we want to, add another wall here, for example, jump back into Rhino. And we see we're receiving something here. There it goes, pops up right there. So this is editing in real time. And of course, if you run any rendering, if you run any simulations down here, you can get that feedback instantly. If I do want to make any adjustments to the mass, let's say that actually I need to take off a floor or add a floor or, add a tower, I can just do that right in just move the zoom bar there, right inside of Rhino. So I'll just go ahead and move my face here, like so. And we're just going to take this, pop it up a little bit like that, hit sync, and then we're going to see that update up in Finch. And the same goes if we want to add another type of floor or anything, we can always do that directly inside of the plugin. Right, we're computing here, then just creating another floor. There we go, pops up right there. And then inside of Finch, this is also showing up here. So it goes really quickly to work quite iteratively with the massing. You can create a bunch of different variants, compare them, see how they're performing across the metrics and decide which one to continue through with. One thing we do see that, I mean, because you are saving so much time while generating, you can actually take more massing options through to the final plan stage. Because even if you take 3 or 4 through, you're still saving them more time than if you would have just one manually. I can also set up custom calculations. So I can set up carbon revenue. These calculations are entirely open. So basically the architect is inputting those coefficients themselves and then choosing, do I want to calculate on net, gross, GIA, these types of things. So this means that this calculation can be used anywhere in the world. And you can also set it up for essentially any type of metric here. All right, but once we're happy with the massing, let's say we're good to go here. We're going to jump down into the plan itself. And in the plan itself, I'm going to generate a corridor, but I could just as well upload my corridor and kind of start from there. In this case, we're just going to start from scratch. So first thing I'm going to do is generate this corridor. And Finch has actually kind of saved my preferences. So right away, it already knows that I want my stairwells toggled towards the inner facade. I want between 1 and 4 stairwells. And then when it comes to my egress distance, I have 8 meters max for a single exit, and then I have 19 here for multiple. If I'm working in a different country than I normally do, or maybe a different city even, and these egress distance fire regulations are a little bit different, I can just update them right here. And let's say like 7 and 20, for example. And you'll notice that when I do that, these colors here are updating as well. So this green dot is now representing that 7-meter rule, and this gray dot is now representing that 20-meter rule. So this means that this algorithm can be used anywhere in the world because all of the parameters that it's essentially solving for are input by the architect. So Finch doesn't naturally kind of assume anything about the context until it's either added into the data set or set up by the architect. So it's always looking for those inputs. We can also, of course, input custom dimensions, so core width, core depth, corridor width, all of this is customizable, of course. All right, once I've assigned this out, Finch is a full editor, so if I ever do have anything that I want to be a bit more bespoke, maybe I want to, get a little bit more control over these inner corners. Maybe I know that I need to have some technical shafts throughout the building, these types of things. You do have your full editing tools, so you can always work alongside of this. Let's say that I want to just drag this wall down a bit. Maybe I want to draw in a little technical storage space here. So this goes really quick to just, work with your existing tools. You can always fall back on the ways of working that you're used to, and of course, generate where it makes sense as well. We also have the editing tools that you're used to in other software. So in this case, we have the Align tool. It's a pretty common one we see, of course, in Revit. We have Array, Mirror, all of this here. So it goes quite quickly to customize the plan further. Once we're happy with this, I'll go ahead and select all of these sections. We're going to say we want to generate a mix here. And right now I'm requesting sizes of 45, 65, 85 square meters at a ratio of 25, 50, 25. And what Fitch is doing here is kind of similar to an evolutionary solver. So essentially we're proposing 2 results, we're scoring them, we take the one that wins, and then we iterate down on that, 10,000 times. And each time Finch is taking a decision about which kind of iteration to proceed with and continue iterating down on, we're running a scoring algorithm. And the architects can always influence this scoring algorithm using the unit weights here. So with this current setup, I basically told Finch that I want my size to be really prioritized as well as the daylight here. So that means that if we get a result that's performing really nicely on the unit sizes and the daylight, it's going to win out over one that maybe is really, really great on squareness and unit mix and this type of thing. So the weights are kind of the way that you as the architect can influence what the algorithm, what Finch is actually thinking is good architecture, because this is quite a local value that usually is quite contextual as well. We can play around with the weights here. We have, of course, the unit mix that's looking at that ratio. We also have grid lines here. So we could say that we want to snap to those. This allows us to work with facade considerations, structural considerations, these types of things. Shape aware, this is quite a fun one. It's basically looking at how clean and flush the geometry is. I often describe it as how human it is, as opposed to if it's mathematically perfect, optimize this type of thing, as there's always, of course, a balance between that. Squareness, avoiding L shapes, adjacency. This is doing what we actually see here, where we have similar units placed next to each other. I can always input hard constraints as well. So for each size range that I ask for, I actually have a relative minimum facade length as well. So for this 45 square meter unit, I have a minimum facade length of 5 meters. But then, of course, when we look at this 85 square meter unit there, I'm wanting a minimum facade length that's a bit bigger of 9 meters here. Same goes with dual aspect, so minimum 85 meters. And then we also have unit width, entrance width, these types of things. All right, but once we're happy with that, let's just go ahead and take this one, sign it down. And now we are ready to start generating. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick this unit, hit generate. And now we're going to start getting results from a few different data sets. So up top, I have my own plans. These are private to me. They're essentially ones that I favorited out over time. Only I can see them. Then down below that, I actually have Acme Architects or my firm's plans. So these ones are available to me and my colleagues, and these ones are going to look very familiar. So, my wall widths, my door widths, my furniture, they're going to be what I'm used to working with. In this Acme dataset, we have a lot of random plans as our demo data set. So here we have more of a Swedish style, here we have a French style, but essentially whatever is in the data set will completely shape your results. So if you have kind of these more like local stylized spatial arrangements, such as, in the US, you can enter an apartment from the kitchen. You would probably never do that in Sweden. These types of things are simply just taken care of by the data set itself. That's not something that we actually even have to set up a rule for, because this type of relationship, the spatial adjacencies are carried over from what's in the data set. You also will get results from the Finch dataset. These are available to everyone on the Finch Enterprise tier. You'll notice these are unfurnished. These are kind of like a jumping off point. You can always go and refine them. And if you do want to filter these down for your specific country, you can, of course, do that as well to find results that are going to be a bit more relevant for you. But of course, the results that are always going to save you the most time are your own, as these are your style. It's pretty much just a sign and go for you, essentially. I've also set up a little graph system in this specific project. So here I've set up these rules saying my double beds need to be 9 square meters, single bed 7, bath 6, etc. When we take a look at this plan, we see that this is actually quite a low scoring plan. So each plan has a score about how good Finch thinks it's going to be. And in this case, we have a 77%. That's not typically a great score. The reason that this score is low is because this bathroom is too small and it's breaking our rule. So every time we have a rule that's being broken, in addition to other factors, it's going to drop the score down. In this case, we have a bathroom that's about 4 square meters. We're missing a couple of square meters here. Maybe this isn't the end of the world, but what's crucial is that the architect is aware of this. And if they do decide to, work with this plan, maybe they are going to move the wall. Maybe it's, a few apartments in the building can be a little bit smaller in the bathroom, this type of thing. But it's just crucial that the architect is actually making a conscious decision about that and not going to, get a surprise later on in the workflow. Of course, if you don't want to see any errors, that's also very understandable. You can also just filter those out. And now every plan that we see here is going to be compliant. It's going to follow our regulations. We can more evaluate it from an aesthetic perspective rather than worrying, okay, is this, following my accessibility? We also have a score here. So each apartment has a score, 91, 92, 94. And this score is a combination of these 3 metrics, which you can highlight over here on the right. First one is adaptivity. This is how much we have to change the plan from its original size. Of course, the less we change the plan, the more likely it is to be compliant. If something has been built before, it's probably going to work again in the future. And then if you combine that with those graph rules that you can update per project, then you're looking at plans that are going to be compliant. Compliance, that's those graphs. We already filtered these out, so everything is 100% here. And then we also are looking at daylight. So spaces that need daylight, do they have it? Do they have access to the facade? You can even control which facades are letting in daylight. So if you have, a building that's quite tight next door, or even if you have like a really noisy facade and you don't want a bedroom generating on there, you could turn the daylight off and then it won't pop in there. So that's a way to get some more control over that. All right, but we've generated 1,000 plans. So I usually like to filter a bit because that's a bit daunting to scroll through all 1,000. So in this unit, I'm looking at 64 square meters. I know that I want a one bed, a one bath, and we say that we want, residential, student housing, hotel. We can also say that we want plans from like North America, for example. Here we see those Finch ones coming in. So this is the way that you can filter for those different ones. And then when it comes to tags, this is what's completely open-ended. So I think I have like a few wheelchair accessible plans in my demo data sets, but this is where you can start to find plans that are going to have very specific attributes, and you can stack those tags to find all of them that, fulfill these requirements for the specific unit. All right, but once we're here, we like this plan, we want to assign it. So it's baked out, and this is a real geometry now. So this is an editing tool. You've generated this, and now you can customize it. You can also leave it as is if you want as well. But in this case, I think that it would be nice if this closet also had a little coat rack. So I'm just going to grab this, move that there. And instantly, because I have my spell check on, I get this instant feedback, object collision, with a little bit of a collision here. I mean, this is not the end of the world. We could just leave this. If we bring this into Revit, it's not going to throw an error or anything. It'll be totally fine. But I mean, it also takes 2 seconds for us to just fix this. And then we know that it's, compliant and we're good to go here. Now that I like this unit, I can see that I actually have a nice little group here in green of identical units. So when Finch is generating in that previous step, what we are trying to do is maximize the amount of identical units, because this means that now in this stage, I can just hit Control C, Control V, drop that in. And now these are linked apartments, so they're model groups. So if I go in and edit one of these, we have 7 units in this group. We're editing all of them. I can go into my firm's furniture library. We can take a look here. We have quite a few. We can add a dog into the bedroom like that, and that's, committing to all instances of that. We can also do the same in 3D as well. So just Control C. Control V, and then we've dropped that through. That's a linked group now. We have 98 units, and it's super snappy to edit things. We can move everything around. That's committing there. And we actually can see in our plans drawer, now we have this model group. This will be brought into Revit as that group, and this will be the naming structure. If I do want to, mirror a plan, for example, I can, of course, always do that. Just flip it right along the center axis. And if I don't want this to be in the same model group as its mirrored counterpart, I can always explode that out. So you have all of the control to say that this is this one, but mirrored, for example. And now this will come in as its own little model group there. All right, but that's kind of how you work quickly through a building. So it's really fast to just get some initial data out. At this point, we have a lot of information we can look through. We'll go through that in another project. But before we jump down into Revit, I want to also take a look at an organic shape. So here we have another building. This is that same exact site. So this is actually sharing the same data. We have the same graph rules applied. So a lot of these kind of parameters that you set up for the project are shared across all the proposals. So you don't need to do it for every single mass that you're proposing for the site. And then also it goes really fast to see, how does the budget differ for this proposal versus this one. But anyways, if we jump down in the plan itself, I want to generate just a quick unit mix around this so we can get to generating apartments. Let's just take that one. Looks good. We, of course, support organic shapes. There is a lot of like fine-tuning settings that you can do, controlling, if walls can be multiple segments with angles, if you want walls coming perpendicular off the facade versus the core. But these, of course, are a little bit more advanced settings, but you do have the ability to get really precise control, particularly when working with these complex shapes. All right, in this one, we want to go ahead and actually generate a plan. So I'm just going to fire this up. And what we are doing here, you can actually kind of see behind the scenes with this graph when we turn it on. Finch is taking this curved shape and simplifying it and able to generate in it. And because of the way we work with this, we actually build the data sets to be very simple. We don't really put curves or too many angles in the data sets themselves, because Finch can take a rectangular plan and turn it into something more complex. But if we do go the other way around, we don't get as many results per plan. So the data set itself is very rectangular, looking pretty normal, but then this does allow us to generate in these more organic curves as well. All right, so looks like we're getting a few results here. We can just take a preview, see how they look. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take these. You do notice that when we have the segments, we do have the facade broken up a bit more, so we can get some more precise control over where the daylight's coming in. All right, we say we like that, looks great. And now actually we have this feature where you can manage similar units as a model group, even if they're not perfectly identical. So if I turn on my grids here, I actually see that these units are the exact same width. They just have a different facade condition, and that's why they're differing in area. But it doesn't make sense for me to generate a whole new unit into this container here, because we see that, I mean, most of the unit is going to be perfectly identical. So if I just hit Control C, Control V, we drop that in. And now we can see that it's actually retained the shape of its next door neighbor, essentially. And if we want to kind of make it fit to this one, I'm just going to extend out this little wall here, like so. And now we'll go ahead and union this, and now it's linked. So if I move this kitchen right there, like that, plans used into units, we're committing this to both instances. So this is a really good way to manage similar plans that are not perfectly identical, especially if you have like a high rise with so many unique units, even though they're all kind of similar at the base. That's a good way to ensure vertical alignment in these types of things. The key difference we'll see here, we have unique units. Unique units is looking at the shape of the container, essentially, itself. And then the plans is the model group, essentially. So in this case, we see that we have two different containers, but sharing the same linked content within. All right. So last thing we're going to show before we jump down into Revit is looking at a completed Finch project, actually. So when you work through an entire project, you're going to get something like this. So this is a fully generated high rise on that same site. We have a lot of data to work with here. Something we do actually see some of our partners doing is presenting directly to their clients inside of Finch and delaying that push out into Revit. Because here in Finch, you have this dynamic environment, you have all these schedules, you have all this data, everything's updating in real time. And also you could kind of collaborate with the client in meetings. They can say, you know, what if we try to generate this mix? You can do that in real time, see how it affects everything. So this is something that we kind of see a shift in the workflow, being able to delay that push out into Revit a bit longer, where everything moves a bit more statically. But here we have this completed project. So just to look at the data, over on the left, we have gross floor area, gross internal, showing all of that. And then on the right, we have these specific data drawers breaking down our contents. So we're looking at GFA right now for Resi, restaurant circulation. We also can look at GIA, NIA, UFA, all sorts here. And then, of course, those calculations that I showed on that other variant are shared here as well. So here we see the carbon revenue, these types of things. Space types as well. So we can see some nice vertical stacking here. So great rooms, double beds, hallways, area, quantity. You can even set up custom calculations for spaces. So you could say that, you know, kitchens cost X amount per square meter, get those values out here in one environment. We also have our unit mix. So are we on target for our ranges? Typically, if you have like a range from your client, you would input that into your unit mix. And then you can see if you have units outside of those sizes, they would be shown in gray. And then the ones within are shown here in color. You can also see the quantities as well. Unique units, we kind of went over that. That's the containers. And then, of course, the model groups themselves. So 2-bed, 3-person type B units are shown here. And these will be brought into Revit with this naming structure as well. We recently added schedules into Finch. So here we can actually see an overview of all of the walls in the building. And what's nice here, we can also see with this icon what's included within the actual units themselves and what's included on the story level as well. So we see we have quite a few walls here, and we can take a look at the quantity, the type, these sort of things. We also are looking at objects, so we can see that this Swedish sink is used in almost every plan in the building. So we have 170 of those. So this gives us a really good idea of kind of what we can expect to bring down into Revit. Same goes with doors. We can also see our outer walls here and edit those there. Last thing we'll show is the graphs. So this graph system is, of course, applied to this building. And right now, no errors because we were using this while generating. But if we do jump down, we get a really nice graph overview here. We can see kind of the connection of spaces, the flow of the apartment. Here we see like we have a shaft with no connection. That, of course, makes sense there. And if we jump into the unit, maybe the client says, what would happen if we start to try to make 2 bathrooms in this apartment? I start drawing, I'm getting that instant real-time feedback. We have the collisions here. We also see that our bathroom is now too small. So everything is updating here in real time. All right, but once we're kind of complete with the project itself, we can jump out into Revit. I also can show a little bit about what we can get into Rhino. Let me just start a little import here. Yeah, and of course, as we were drawing in Rhino, this has been updating as well. So we actually have our kind of information there. I'm just going to start a 2D import and then we'll jump over into Revit. All right, so here we are in Revit. So this is that high-rise plan shown here. And essentially, in order to work with Revit, you basically are just going to click your project, the variant name, hit download, give it a few minutes, and we're going to bring everything in. If we look at what we have model groups here with that naming structure brought all the way in. We also have a custom family, so we can see the model groups. We see that we have a Finch unit wall, 120 mil. So doors, walls are 3D, furniture is 2D. We're also bringing in room tags, area plans, these types of things. Right now, these are just Finch unit walls, but of course, when you import, you can actually map them to existing families in your file. So that means that then you can just have them come in your own firm's templates from the get-go. If we look at areas, jump over here. So we have a nice area diagram showing nets, sellable as well as gross. We also have our 3D as well, so you can kind of see what we're getting here. But you're in a good spot to create a lot of schedules and kind of continue working from there. Very last thing I will show before we jump over into Q&A is working with our new feature, which is generating plans directly inside of Revit. So if we just open the Generate tab, and let's say that I want to generate a plan, I'll click once on the unit I want to generate. I want the door to be on this wall, hit finish. And then instantly we are going to start generating from our existing data set up in Finch. And so this is a really easy way to get people to use Finch for the very first time because you click 3 times, you're in your existing software and you're already kind of leveraging that data set, that archive that you have in all of your past knowledge. So this is a really nice way to just work in that workflow. Also, if you have a later stage project that's pretty far into Revit, you want to just generate there, stay right in there. This is also a good workflow to use that on. All right. Last thing we'll show actually is the Revit or the Rhino import. So we'll just zoom in here. Let me turn off our Finch layer. So this is what we're bringing in on, is that right? All right, looks like it was a little bit heavy for a Rhino, but we have some information on our docs about how to kind of work with that. Our docs are available here, right? If you jump out into Finch, you always have the user guide there, which shows the docs. And here you can go over how to upload your building for Rhino, Revit. We have information about ArchiCAD, Grasshopper, all of this is available here. If you do look at the Finch Academy, this is kind of a 101 to go through all of the steps to learn Finch. And yeah, then you're good to go. Feel free to reach out to us. I think with that, we can maybe jump back into our slides. And before we jump into Q&A, it would be really great if we can do a quick poll. This just helps us understand kind of where you guys are located, what types of projects you want to work with, these types of things. So I'll launch this right here inside of Zoom here. All right. But I think with that, just a quick overview of our pricing as well. We have the free tier. This includes the massing tools, so feel free to go in and explore that. The basic tier includes a 14-day free trial. This includes the massing as well as the floor plate generator. And then we also have the enterprise tier, which is the full suite with the data set, and that's starting at 1,000 euros per month. All right, but with that, I think we can go through our Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Amelia. Yeah, as Amelia said, we have the Q&A turned on here in our call, so please just keep firing questions at us, and we'll go through and answer those. Okay, let's start at the top. What file are the typical unit layouts drawn in? Do you need to create them all in Finch in order to be able to use them?
So we can accept any type of file format. So we build the first data set and you can send them over in anything that you have. I mean, whether that's PDF, Revit, DWG. We've even had one firm send us hand-drawn as well. So we can be really flexible in the type of data that we accept.
Great. We have another question about, is it possible to upload a model with plans that maybe have some problems and then get Finch to help solve them?
So we currently don't have a way to kind of work backwards. So we're always generating new plans, but we don't have a way to check existing plans. But that is something we have heard a bit about, so maybe we'll head there in the future.
I think if I can just piggyback on that as well, I think if we have a model perhaps in Revit where we've already started to generate a core placement or kind of a unit mix, if we're looking at a plan at kind of the whole project scale, we can then send all of that up into Finch and then iterate kind of around the existing corridor and core placements as well. So at the kind of specificity of the unit size, we might not be able to get Finch to look at your plan, but we can also look at yeah, working with kind of your existing information as well. Caroline has a question here. I have a question about how Finch handles grid lines in the model. If you set up a model in Revit with grid lines, for example, based on the existing parking lot underneath the building, and does Finch use these grid lines when generating floor plans?
Yeah, so any grid lines that you send up from Revit, if they're in the file, they'll actually kind of be taken up automatically. And then when you're generating your floor plates, Finch is kind of working with those, looking at the demising wall. So this is a common way that we see firms work with, parking structures, columns, window placements, these types of things.
Awesome. A question here. We've had this one before, but will Finch be developed to work with SketchUp?
We don't have any immediate plans for that now. Currently, we're working on ArchiCAD. We expect the first version of that to come out early 2026. But we basically kind of develop our plugins based on what our enterprise partners are currently using. So if we do see a demand for SketchUp, we of course will look into it, but nothing on the roadmap right now.
Awesome. Now we have a question about licenses. What's the typical number of licenses that you would sell based on a firm size? It's a great question, actually.
Yeah, it really depends. I think it's a combination of firm size as well as product pipeline, and also how you guys are looking to use Finch. We do have a few different tiers. The smaller tiers are usually named licenses with less count, but the larger tiers have floating in larger amounts. But we see that usually the small tiers looking between, I would say, 40 to 100, and then we see in terms of employee size, and then we see differences based on we have multi-year partnerships, these types of things. But we can go into it a bit more depth if you reach out to us, we can discuss it.
Awesome. Okay, we have a question here. The plan layouts now seem to be unaware of contextual qualities. Is it possible to develop a system where you define the no, apologies, can't speak today. Define the attractivity of each direction so that we can kind of specify this,
Mm.
we should, this area is where we want
Mm.
bedrooms, this area is loud, for example.
Yeah, so the way that we kind of work with this right now is through that daylight toggle, because essentially we can say which spaces in a data set need daylight. So we can customize and say that, all bedrooms need daylight, all balconies need daylight, these types of things. And then you can turn on and off daylight from specific facades. So you could say, okay, I don't want a bedroom generated on this facade with no other access to, another facade. So that's kind of where we stop with that, but we are kind of investigating this. We see a lot of our Norwegian partners work a lot with noise and these types of things, so it is a bit on our radar. But right now, it's through the daylight toggle, or also just kind of picking which plans are going to be relevant when you're generating.
Hmm. And then there's just a follow-up here on the same question about designating the kind of structural direction for bathrooms. So kind of making sure that the orientation of the bathroom is following, I guess, the structural grid of the project, because as you said, bathrooms require holes in the slabs and the placement of them are sensitive to the structural direction.
Yeah, so I mean, regarding shafts and things like that, we can actually input shafts directly into the plans and Finch will generate them. But when it comes to kind of choosing, is the bathroom on the demising wall, little against the corridor, these types of things, this is a little bit on the architect in terms of, you get 20 plans, you're going to look for the ones where the bathroom is facing the direction you want. So I think with a lot of Finch, it is kind of a combination of your expertise as an architect with the generative tools. And we just hope to provide you with as many results as possible so you can make a decision combined with the graphs and all of that. So yeah, the short answer is right now we aren't looking at the contextual graph rules. This is something we're investigating. I think it will maybe come out next year. But yeah, now that's something the architect does.
Brilliant. Can you only create plans with floor plans with corridors? So floor plates with corridors, or can we create kind of floor plates with isolated circulation cores that have access to multiple flats?
Yeah, so we do have another type of algorithm. We see this is used a lot in Scandinavia. It's called the stairwell algorithm, and it's one of the options actually when you're able to generate there. And this is generating out those stairwells with apartments kind of grouped around it. This is kind of in beta currently, so feel free to give it a test. It's actually available on the basic tier. So if you sign up to that one with the free trial, you can test that.
Brilliant. And we have a question, a follow-up here about, I'm still confused on who actually creates the data sets, the floor plans. Do we do that at our end, or is that part of our services here at Finch?
So that's on our side. So the data set is only relevant for the enterprise tier because the basic tier doesn't include the AI plan generation. So the data set build is something that we have a team of in-house architects that will create it. So essentially, when we partner, we would have a meeting going over what we need from you to build the data set, and then we build that. You also can add to your data set, and you can for sure add plans as well. We don't like cap the amount of plans you can have, but we just typically build that first foundation because so much of the intelligence of Finch is coming from that data set. So yeah, we focus on teaching you guys how to use Finch. We build the data set, and then after that, you can of course take ownership of the data set as well. We have some firms that really manage their own, and some firms that we manage. So it's just kind of how you want to work with it.
Amazing. Another question, are we developing for Vectorworks, a plugin at the moment?
Mhm. We don't have any plans for this. We don't get this request too much, but it would be great to understand how often you guys are using this software in residential projects, and also what country that is looking for that. We see like a lot of Swiss and German are looking for ArchiCAD. We see Vectorworks a bit in the UK as well. So yeah, it would be great to understand if this is a big software in your area.
With Finch being web-based, do you have any ways of working with client confidentiality and not sharing floor plans on your servers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, everything that you create in Finch is yours. You own it, and all of your data is private. So, on the firm level, only you and your colleagues can see it. And then, of course, when we partner with firms, we also have like NDAs built into our partnerships as well. So, yeah, no one is seeing your data. We're not training on it, and you're able to keep it completely private. And even in within the firm yourself itself, if you don't share your project with your colleagues, they can't see your project as well. So we have seen that, like, some teams within firms need to have confidential projects from other teams, and that's supported as well.
Brilliant. How long is a trial if we're testing Finch Basic?
It's 14 days. We don't have an extendable trial for that, but it's a 14-day trial.
Amazing. Can Finch also be used to plan schools for classrooms? Plan schools, plan classroom. Can we work with other typologies? How would we work with other typologies in Finch?
Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to generating, what we generate is really working kind of inside or outside in, sorry. So we have a mass, we generate the floor plate, and we generate the apartments within that. And I think as long as you kind of do follow this workflow, I mean, Finch can be used in any typology that follows that because we build a data set for each typology, and then you can just filter if it's a hotel room or if it's a classroom or this type of thing. One thing we have seen when looking at like classrooms or hospitals or these types is if it's working inside out, this is not as suitable of a workflow for Finch, simply because we always need basically that container to generate inside as a constraint. But as mentioned, we are working on offices, and this is kind of opening up tools that allow us to change this workflow a bit. So first step is offices, but a lot of these tools that we are building for office, we also see clear applications for schools or for hospitals. So I think this is something that we really are going to look into in 2026. We do have some of our enterprise firms that are working in other typologies, but just kind of using it as like an editing tool because you get all the areas, you get all the information. So I mean, you absolutely can draw any type of project in Finch, but it's just when it comes to generating, then that's pretty residential at the moment. But we're working on Office.
Awesome. We have someone else here in the call who's seen a GIF for Finch showing the unit layouts mixes changing in real time in 3D ISO view. Did we cover that in today's tutorial? I would also like to see that GIF, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if it's the GIF that I'm thinking of, I think that's more of a conceptual GIF, kind of showing how dynamic you can update, change the unit container size, regenerate in it. But essentially, we generate a fixed floor plate and then generate apartments inside of that. We previously did have some features, I would say maybe 3 years ago or something, where you could drag a demising wall and the unit would update inside of that. But we actually found that a lot of architects were a little uncomfortable with this amount of flexibility and the fact that Finch was like making decisions for them and changing
Mm.
things without them kind of approving it. So, I mean, we're always interested to hear how you guys do want to work with that, but we have seen that, people don't want Finch to make changes without them initiating that kind of just by moving things. So, yeah, this is something we discuss a lot with partners.
Absolutely. And what we did, or what you did cover in today's session, is also how you can have the live sync with Rhino. So when you're generating unit mixes, that's updating live on your other window in Rhino. So you can kind of see the translation between the 2D and the 3D reflected between those two softwares as well. Can you specify a little bit more about the waiting list, the 100,000 waiting list? How does this apply if our firm would like to get started with Finch?
Yeah, so I mean, the waiting list has gotten very large. So if you do have a project you want to use with Finch, please email me directly. We are always kind of trying to find firms in the waiting list that have active residential projects, but of course, it is possible to get lost in there. So please reach out to me. My email is amelia.henry@finch3d.com. But when it comes to kind of how we let those firms in, it is a little bit of a first come, first served, essentially. If you are a good fit regarding the softwares you're using, regarding projects, then we essentially open up those slots at the beginning of every month. And whoever has a project and is ready to get started, we go with them and then we close it down. So yeah, I think we have maybe one more slot open for November, and then we, of course, we'll open up a few more in December as well.
Awesome. Next question is, will Finch eventually evolve to help build structural framing, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing layouts?
Yeah, this is a good question. I think, of course, we do want to head there eventually. I don't think this is something that we're planning to head to in like 2026. I think we're more looking to expand typologies. Finch is at its core an early stage feasibility space planning tool, and this is kind of what we, are developing towards and working on. But of course, like the grid lines and other types of features, we're always wanting to make it a little bit easier for that transition. But I think the main focus at Finch is for this space planning.
Awesome. Another question about licensing here and about in the future if there's going to be licensing options that have access to the Finch data set but does not create or use a company data set. Is this something that we have in our pipeline? Anything that we've heard requested before?
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit on our radar. I think we are looking into expanding our licensing typologies in the future regarding students, regarding this case is a very good example as well. This is not anything we are planning to look into in the immediate future, as right now we are really focused on like building the data sets and working quite closely with our existing partners. But
Mm,
I think when we kind of go out of this enterprise lockdown phase, then we might explore that as well.
awesome. We have a question about our ArchiCAD plugin, which is getting a lot of hype. When is this coming out, Amelia? When can people be expecting to use this?
Yeah, our plans right now are early 2026. I think we will post more specific dates pretty soon. But we are planning to build the same kind of features, being able to generate right in ArchiCAD, these types of things. We do currently have a connection to ArchiCAD through Grasshopper. We have some scripts up on our docs, so you can have a look at that using the ArchiCAD Live connection. But yeah, early 2026 is the short answer.
Awesome. Not long now. Can you give us a little bit of overview of how you see Finch as being different from Hyper, TestFit, or Former, these kind of other early
Yeah.
stage feasibility tools?
Yeah, I think perhaps I mean Forma is working at the very beginning. It's primarily working with massing. So we see a really powerful workflow coming from Forma into Finch, where our architects are, creating the mass, running all these simulations, getting all the, data out about wind, light, these types of things, and then pushing that into Finch directly, generating through, and then pulling it out into Revit afterwards as that full BIM model. So Forma is kind of the beginning of the pipeline. We currently don't work with massing, the actual creation of a mass, so Forma is covering that. And I think with TestFit as well, it's a bit similar. Also, I think TestFit is maybe a little more on the inside out workflow than Finch is. I mean, we do need that mass input and then we generate inside of it. And I think we also go a bit more in detail into the plan level than TestFit does. And Hyper, I think, is a bit working more with offices and other typologies. I don't believe they do too much with residential, but don't hold me to that. But I mean, we see they're doing really cool stuff as well. But I think it's a different level of detail, a different type of project that they're working with, more of this kind of space planning. Yeah, working inside out a little bit.
Amazing. I think we have a final question here, which is, are they correct in thinking the basic version doesn't use AI, but the enterprise license does, essentially? Can you explain kind of how that's incorporated into Finch's, yeah, generative tools?
Yeah, so I mean, where we're using AI, machine learning, this type of thing in the process is really in generating the Finch data set plans. So there we're using a combination of graph-based neural networks, diffusion generation, these types of things. But you're correct in that when we're generating just the floor plates, this is just essentially a complex evolutionary solver algorithm. So that's not technically AI, but it is a complex algorithm as well that you have access to. But yeah, the AI is in the Finch plans. We are planning to implement some of the AI models we use on the Finch side into the client data sets in 2026 as well. But I think we'll post some information about that and kind of how that works a bit more in the future.
Amazing. We had one final question there, which was asking for your email. I accidentally clicked answer live, but I've then answered it here in text as well. So you'll find it under the answered tab here in the Q&A window.
Right. And you can also find me on LinkedIn as well. Feel free to reach out and message me there if you guys want to get started. But yeah, we will send a recording out of the presentation. And you also will receive some emails about how to get started with either basic or enterprise or whatever you want to proceed with there. All right, but we'll probably have another one of these maybe before the holidays. But otherwise, stay tuned for the emails and maybe see you guys in the new year when we can show some new features. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye bye.
Bye.